ऑन है।
The best app to use is the NDTV app.
दुनिया भर में जब भी भारतीय मीडिया की चर्चा होती है तो एनडीटीवी सबसे पहले जिक्र में आता है।
मैं आपका बात से सहमत हूं, उल्टे हम भी सब विदेश जाते हैं। The best app to use is the NDTV app.
They have inspired us. They have redefined what's possible. They have shown how ideas spark inspiration and create impact. NDTV Indian of the Year 2025. Ideas, inspiration, impact. Coming soon.
21 days in Kashmir. People have bombarded me, friends, with requests for an unfiltered list of things I saw and observed on the ground.
Very special ground report from the line of control. There were some children who've lost limbs in the shelling.
They are now India's smallest but possibly the most powerful crime family. Cough syrup has killed at least 25 children. Gaikwad sahab, ऐसे मत कीजिए. Suddenly people are wondering about the weaponization of India-Pakistan cricket. We live and breathe elections. You will not believe your eyes or ears when I show you what I'm about to.
And for a country that has fought so many wars in the mountains and at high altitude.
We're standing on the Indian Navy's newest warship.
The line of control, Shiv Arun, NDTV.
जब आ रहे थे नतीजे और बीजेपी
Good evening. Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. In a shocking display of territorial overreach, Prema Thongdok, a British-based consultant from Arunachal Pradesh from India, was detained for 18 hours at China's Pudong International Airport. She was transiting from London to Japan. Her ordeal began when Chinese immigration officials seized her valid Indian passport, declaring it invalid because of her birthplace, Arunachal Pradesh. She reached out to the government of India. They tried to help her, but the Chinese wouldn't allow her to proceed on to Tokyo. She says she's a proud Indian and Arunachali, she isn't Chinese. The External Affairs Ministry has backed her in a statement. She joins us on this program in a few moments on a day when China has again said that Zhangnan is China's territory, that they've never acknowledged the so-called Arunachal Pradesh, which they say is illegally set up by India. India, of course, doesn't accept that at all. There have been so many provocations in Arunachal Pradesh over the last couple of years, just keep changing the points. One was in December 2022 when soldiers of the Chinese army tried to push into the area. They were pushed back by Indian soldiers. That continued to move on to other scenarios. The situation was eventually de-escalated. In April 2023, China issued a list renaming 11 places in Arunachal Pradesh. New Delhi said this was rubbish. The Chinese called it Southern Tibet. And this has been a process which has gone on over and over the last couple of years. In March 2024, another list was released by China renaming 30 locations. In fact, depending on where you are, some of those maps actually show those Chinese locations. India says that, look, you can name whatever you want. The reality is that this is entirely ours. This year, China completed 36 hardened aircraft shelters at Lunje Air Base. That, of course, is in Chinese territory. That's not in dispute. But the point that we are actually mentioning over here is that China continues to militarize the entire Himalayan frontier on their sides, while, of course, continuing to threaten Arunachal Pradesh. But a little while earlier on today, I did speak to Prema, the Indian national, who was harassed repeatedly by Chinese authorities. Here's what she told me. Well, we're joined now by a very special guest, Prema Wangjom Thongdok herself. Prema, thank you so much. And it's just horrible what you have had to suffer in all of this, and we appreciate you, coming on record. Tell us a little bit about what happened at Shanghai airport. When did it start? What exactly took place?
So I left from London Gatwick Airport for my holiday in Japan, which had a transit in Shanghai for about only 3 hours. So obviously, because I had flown this route before and I was well aware that you can transit, is why I did take this journey. Because the first time that I transited from Shanghai was in 2024, October 16th. And because it was my first time transiting through China, I ensured that I called up the Chinese embassy in London, and they ensured that, yes, there is no issue. If you're just transiting, you can transit for less than 24 hours or 12 hours without a transit visa, which is why I took on this journey. And once I reached Shanghai airport, basically one of the immigration officers singled me out of the security gates queue and basically pointed at Arunachal on my passport to say invalid passport. Arunachal part of China, not India.
Prema, how many hours did you end up spending before Indian Consulate General officials reached out to you in Shanghai?
I could actually get out without their help, because what they insisted at the end was, get back to your country or go to UK. The reason I did speak and reach out to the Indian embassy is for them to be able to speak with the immigration, reason with them, and say, on what grounds are you saying that our country's passport is invalid, so that they can let me go on my onward journey to Japan, which actually didn't happen. So very kindly thankful to IFS, Mr. Rajat, and all his team that came to the airport once I rang them. But actually I couldn't even get hold of any phone number to call Indian embassies, because the Chinese Wi-Fi was really slow in the airport, and it did not have, you cannot access WhatsApp, any of your socials. You cannot even access Google from China. So I could not find the number to be able to contact or make any contact to my family or anyone that I'm stuck in China, basically. After, I think, almost 10, 12 hours is when basically I kind of pressured the immigration and the airline staff that, look, I need to speak to someone. There is no way I would stay here for this long without you guys giving me a proper, definitive written document which says that Indian passport for holders and residents of Arunachal is invalid. And they obviously just kept basically dismissing my comments, or me questioning them about, why are you holding me, etc. And it was after 10 to 12 hours that I basically, when I told them I need to speak to a lawyer, and so they gave me the landline, which I used to contact my friends in London. Because also the fact that it was the weekend and the timing was as such, I couldn't actually get hold of the Indian embassy in London because it was almost midnight. So I rang my friends, who helped me get numbers for the Indian embassy in Shanghai, and that's when I contacted them.
Was there resistance as well towards the Indian officials who were trying to help you?
Absolutely. There was no resolve, so I did kind of feel bad that, such high officials have come to the airport to solve such an issue for someone like me. Like, I'm just a citizen, I'm not even a government official or anything. And
they're just
in
doing
fact,
their job. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm very grateful for them. But actually, the end result was the same. I still had to leave for India or UK. They wouldn't listen to the Indian officials as well, and would not completely dismiss the fact that Indian passport is a valid travel document.
So basically, they wouldn't allow you to continue to Japan, and they said you can go back to where you've come from and go to India as well. They just wouldn't let you continue with your journey, right?
Yes, exactly. And so restrictive to the fact that, because I was so tired, 12 hours journey from London, almost being held for 18 hours, I kind of said to them, look, I just need to be out of here, so let me book any flight. So they would restrict it. It was a pure case of harassment. They wouldn't even let me book any other flight. It had to be China Eastern.
Yeah.
Now the question here is, obviously, if China Eastern is the flight that brought me from London to Shanghai, and they are dismissing my passport, they saw my passport at the boarding gates in London. Why didn't they not stop me there? So it's a due diligence and negligence from the airline uh, to actually board someone that they think doesn't carry a valid document.
Yeah.
And obviously, the Indian document is not invalid. I'm a frequent and a avid traveler. I mean, between my work and, when I get paid holidays, every year I travel. I've been to 58 countries where Indian passport is very well a valid document.
Ultimately, you're in Bangkok now, where you're speaking from, and are you going back to London, or are you trying to continue with your journey to Japan?
I lost so much funds in terms of flights and hotels, so I'm just rethinking the whole process. But yes, the whole idea was my company. I work in financial services in the UK, and in fact, my work is regulation. So I advise big multi-billion-dollar clients on financial regulations. So I'm very well aware of regulations, and which is why I did my due diligence and I knew that this is a safe route to take because I've already taken this route and I've sought permission from the Chinese embassy before taking this journey. So my idea was to basically explore Japan because obviously that's one of the countries that I've not been to, and then use my remote working holiday so I can work remotely from anywhere in the world for a month. So I was planning to be here somewhere in Asia, perhaps, Indonesia or here, and have my family over and basically meet them before I head back to UK. So I'm still here.
Prema, let me ask you this. It's a personal question. Do you not feel deeply offended by what happened? Besides all of this legalese and the process, does it not, doesn't it really strike a chord? Doesn't it really hit you as an Indian that is why you are being targeted?
Exactly. That is the point because, see, I travel quite often. I love traveling. I love to explore new countries and, just that's my thing to do. Everyone has their own hobby and passion apart from their job. But the fact that I'm raising this is not because I've been inconvenienced. I mean, you have your travel good and bad stories, right? It was very deeply painful for me as an Indian national to be told that a part of your country, your land, where your birthplace is considered not part of your own country, but of China. And obviously, I do not want any future Indian citizens to face such an ordeal, and especially people from Arunachal, because I do remember a couple of years ago when Indian, like Arunachal athletes wanted to go to some of the athletic event, and China somehow did something similar. So it seems to be quite a recurrent
Unfortunately, it is.
Event for Chinese immigration, and the government to not be taking strict actions against their staff. And perhaps maybe it's a welcome change for India to understand that that maybe this is something that they need to discuss on a more strict and diplomatic level.
There's been a statement from New Delhi, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, where they've actually said that at a time when India and China are trying to regularize the relationship, something like this doesn't help the process at all. Are you satisfied with that response?
Absolutely, totally agree. Something as sensitive as claiming a part of another country to be theirs, China calling Arunachal to be theirs, is quite unruly and out of order, quite outrageous because, I mean, we've always been Indian. We've been proud Indians from the northeast of India. And we don't have any land, property, voting, or public access, access to public funds in China. We are completely Indian. So to have my nationality questioned, to have Indian citizens harassed when it's something that I have no say at, because I'm just a citizen, right? And in fact, I'm a non-resident citizen of India. And this is such a huge diplomatic issue that they should deal with it directly with the authorities of India and not with a commoner.
Well, are you going to take any legal action? Is there a legal recourse perhaps against the airline which allowed you to travel in the first place, or I dare say the government of China itself, or is that money of yours just gone?
I think it's just gone. I mean, I wish I could. I don't know how it would be. I'll explore the option, obviously.
I think you should.
Um,
Because I
but
think
for
there's a
me, it's
travesty
more
of justice here.
the mental and the physical trauma of having to go through this whole thing when I'm clearly an Indian citizen with an Indian passport, which is clearly a valid document. The questioning of my nationality, the questioning of Arunachal being claimed as Chinese territory when all our lives, like since the beginning of inception of Arunachal, we've been Indian, is more an issue at hand than the financial loss. Of course, I'm deeply saddened by the fact that I couldn't go on my onward journey to Japan, and there has been some financial losses. But at the end of the day, it was more important for me to raise this awareness so that before Indians take that trip to
Yeah.
China, they think twice and obviously perhaps avoid such ordeals in the
Prema,
future.
are you going to travel to China anytime in the future?
In no way. I mean, not even transiting, because the whole fact that I said to them, like, if you don't want me in the country, why are you keeping me here? Like, I'm only transiting. The fact that they are saying it's not the transit that's an issue, it's the fact that you don't hold a valid passport. In fact, mocking me to say, apply for a Chinese passport. They know that in 3 hours, when my next flight is, I cannot get hold of a Chinese passport. And why should I? I'm an Indian, I'm not Chinese. Yeah, so definitely not going to be in my itinerary ever in the future.
They mocked you and said, get a Chinese passport.
Yes, immigration officers, absolutely unprofessional, unruly, screaming. And in fact, I had to at one point say, "I'm going to take out my phone and start recording if you don't behave professionally."
All right, well, Prema, thank you very much for speaking to us. And I think it takes a great deal of courage to have stood up to these bullies and have asserted your citizenship as a proud Indian national and a proud citizen of our country and somebody who's very close to your state, Arunachal Pradesh. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Thanks very much indeed. If the horrific pollution over large parts of the Indo-Gangetic Plains wasn't enough, it was the emergence of an ash cloud, which resulted in ash coming in all across the North Arabian Sea, from Ethiopia, where there was a volcanic eruption, across the Indian subcontinent, which really was a cause of concern for flights and the possibility of even greater air pollution. We'll be joined by the Director General of the Indian Met Department in just a moment from now. But this satellite imagery actually shows you the areas where it passed through. All of these pink-orange sort of streaks that you see over here is actually smoke. It's smoke which adds on to the pollution which is already there, but at a lower altitude. This was actually fairly high at an altitude of 25 to 45,000 feet. And all across the Indian subcontinent and indeed India itself, across the national capital region and flowing all the way east and then onwards and upwards into China, where it eventually gets to, was this horrific wave of ash cloud. Now, again, fortunately, the long-term impact of this may not be very great. We'll explain that to you in a moment. Let's go to the next image, because the big concern was on flight operations. And as a result of this, 19 international flights have been impacted, 7 international flights have been cancelled, 12 international flights were delayed. This is what it was on Flight Radar earlier on. These were the areas which were directly being impacted. This is Delhi over here. This is one of the heaviest and most congested airspaces anywhere in the world. And flights were operating. When I checked on this last night on Flight Radar, they were operating mostly under 35,000 feet to keep them safe off this ash cloud. But this could have been a real concern if this was lower. Then you would have seen a massive disruption of flight services. It would have been absolutely horrific, along the lines of what we saw during the COVID period when flight operations shut down to a large extent. Let's move to another image, which actually gives you another visual representation of all of the areas which were actually impacted by this ash cloud. All across Pakistan, going into India, all of Rajasthan, essentially covering New Delhi, areas further east. And then, of course, as we showed you in the previous image, it's just, it continues to move. It was actually moving quite fast. Some analysts say at a speed of approximately 200 odd kilometers per hour. But we'll give you one final picture, and this doesn't have to do with the ash cloud. It has to do with the smoke cloud, which actually exists. This comes from the NASA scientist Hiren Jetwa. And this was the smoke situation across the Indo-Gangetic Plain. All of this is the horrific air pollution that impacts us and plagues us at this stage. Now, what we saw in terms of the ash cloud was pollution at a higher altitude. This is at a lower altitude. This is what results in the PM 2.5 count being absolutely abysmal. But joining us now to give us a sense of the ash cloud and what we can potentially sort of have a look at in terms of the overall situation, Dr. Mrityunjay Mohapatra, DG of the Met India Department. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us. Dr. Mohapatra, firstly, is there potentially any long-term fallout of this ash cloud on India?
Yeah, as you told correctly, these ash clouds over the Indian region entered yesterday evening from Gujarat and Rajasthan, and by midnight it reached in northeast India near about Delhi, and then it is moving towards east northeast direction towards China across eastern India and northeastern states. And the speed of movement of these ash clouds are about 150 kilometers per hour. So therefore, it is moving very fast, and hence the duration for which it is prevailing over Indian region is quite less. By evening today, say around 7:30 or 8, entire Indian region will be free, and this cloud mass will be moving towards the China. So therefore, whatever impact we have, that impact will be restricted only up to today directly, and that impact again is restricted towards the aircraft operation between say 8 kilometer to 5 kilometer or 25,000 feet to 45,000 feet height. So
Mohapatra, let me ask you this, sir. You know, we already have this horrific pollution which exists presently. Were we just lucky that this ash cloud was actually at a higher altitude? Because a lot of the pollution over the Indo-Gangetic Plain is now at a lower altitude, partly because of thermal inversion, other factors as well. If these two had come together, would it have been a very dangerous situation? Was that a worry for you?
Yes. Yes, you are correct. We are lucky that it is prevailing in a very high altitude, that is from 25,000 feet to 45,000 feet, and it is not subsided because of the fact that the wind speed is quite high. So it is driving all these ash clouds away from Indian region very fast. The second point is that there is no weather system at present. There is no rainfall occurring in northern parts of the country, including northern India or northeastern states or the eastern India. So that is a good news. Had there been some western disturbance or some kind of low pressure systems in these regions, then perhaps there could have been rain, and associated with these ash clouds there could have been some other adverse impacts, and there could have been mixing with the lower levels. So that is
but Dr.
not
Mohapatra,
happening.
just so that I understand
good, or
it,
you can say
you mentioned two important points. If there was rain which took place, then there could have been a mixing of that ash cloud which could have resulted in essentially chemical rain or something which is adverse. And secondly, even if there wasn't rain, if the pollution level which presently exists interspersed or mixed with the ash cloud coming in, then air pollution levels, which are horrific as you know, would have been much higher. Am I correct, sir?
Yeah, much higher, but that depends on the type of rain also. If it would have been very light rain, then it could be much higher. If there will be, say, for example, a shower, then again it will wash away from the atmosphere, it will go to the soil. So therefore, usually in the winter months, we do not get very high density rainfall. We get light rainfall. Therefore, had there been any rainfall, it could have increased.
And what about the intermingling of the plume from the volcano with the existing air pollution that we see? Could that have taken air pollution levels to a very high level, even higher?
No, since these two are disjoint, there is no connectivity between the lower level air pollution or air quality, whatever we have, and this upper level, which is prevailing at a height of 8 to 15 kilometers. So therefore, we are not expecting that it will have impact on the lower level air quality. There is no process of subsidence. If there have been any high level subsidence of air from upper atmosphere to the lower atmosphere, then it would have led to the intermixing and hence the increase in atmosphere. That is not expected. So therefore, there will be no impact on air quality, and also there is no impact on weather.
Well, we are lucky for that. Small mercies, sir. Thank you so much for joining us with that. I'm just going to play out for our viewers, and this is incredible satellite imagery which actually shows the smoke plume arising from that massive volcano which was dormant for 12,000 odd years. It's about 800 kilometers northeast of the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa, and then all across the northern Arabian Sea, we had this gigantic plume of smoke which entered the Indian subcontinent and fortunately is slowly being dispersed. Well, flight operations in India have been impacted after volcanic ash from an Ethiopian volcano drifted across to India. Now, for perspective, this volcano has erupted for the first time in over 10,000 years. You've got images of that over here. It comes at a time when there has been intensive pollution over the entire national capital region, in fact, across the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Now, there have been a certain number of flights which have been impacted. 7 international flights were impacted, were in fact cancelled. 12 international flights were delayed. Airlines were ordered to strictly avoid all ash-affected routes and altitudes and adjust flight plans accordingly to ensure that flight safety was paramount. They've also been advised to report any engine or cabin anomalies immediately. Some carriers, including Indigo, Akasa and KLM, cancelled or diverted their flights. Meanwhile, the Indian Met Department has issued an update that the ash cloud will leave India's airspace and move towards China from this evening, from this night onwards. Be that as it may, as I mentioned, it comes at a time when there's been horrific air pollution across this entire region. The fact of the matter is that this particular ash cloud was high, which has perhaps saved us from an even worse situation. Joining us now, Sunil Dahiya, founder and lead analyst at Enviro Catalyst. Sunil, thanks very much for being with us. As I understand it, Vimlendu Jha also with us. Sunil, let me come to you first. As I understand it, this was between an altitude of 25 and 45,000 feet, this particular ash plume, ash cloud. Had it been lower than that, would we have had a bigger impact, let us say, in the national capital region?
No, definitely the height of this cloud that matters for Delhi NCR and not also for other regions. If the height of these polluted plumes is lower, then there are more chances of the pollutants being settled because this will settle somewhere. But because it is moving at a greater height in Delhi NCR and in the IGP region, the deposition will be way too lower compared to it would have been if the cloud would have been lower. And that means that since it has hit Delhi NCR region since yesterday night, the pollution levels haven't gone sort of really high suddenly. And the only reason for that is that this cloud is at a higher altitude and the deposition is very, very small.
Vimlendu, potentially what harm can this ash cloud cause us? I mean, is it possible for the deposits over here to still cause some sort of damage? Does it add to the pollution levels?
Not really, as in there was a fear because, we are actually talking about ash, we're talking about sulfur